Hello and welcome to the Child Care Business Coach podcast. My name is Evelyn Knight. Today, I am joined with Beth Cannon, who is somebody that I've just gotten to know over the last year through Facebook, which is pretty cool, and just have gained a ton of respect for. So you guys get to hear from Beth. And if you're a regular to my podcast, you've heard Beth before. So we get the pleasure of having her on again. So Beth, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, I think that our connection, I think it was like a divine appointment because we connected literally right before COVID hit. And we recorded this podcast and it was going to be on breaking burnout. And then all of a sudden the world shut down. We're like, wait a minute, we're not burnt out right now. We're trying to figure out what the heck is our next step. So we've kind of really learned and stumbled through all of this. So you've just been a great mentor to me. So I'm so thankful for that. But prior to COVID, my main business was running Stretch and Grow, which is an enrichment program. We go into preschools and I'm the corporate trainer for Stretch and Grow International. It's a franchise. And then I've been a speaker and just a staff development trainer, keynote speaker. So all of those things kind of got put in this big pot, mixed up pot. So through COVID, I've really focused on more of the business and leadership strategy side of the business that I had been teaching through my corporate training experience, and just leaning into all of these directors and giving them this business leadership training that is so lacking in the early childhood industry. As taking people who've been educators and now they're entrepreneurs and they're leaders of companies and of centers. And so it's been really cool to just pull together resources to uplift leaders, to help them level up their leadership, to give them ideas on leading their staff, on pouring into their team, on their back office systems. And so that's just really my heart, is to pour into these ECE leaders so that they can pour into their team.
Yes. And I think we both kind of have the same vision, a little bit different. And I also agree with you. It was definitely more of a divine appointment that we came into each other's lives at this. I mean, God's timing is amazing, and it was just perfect. And so, I think we've both in our own ways have helped so many people through this time, which was really, really kind of cool to watch from a bird's eye view. So it's a pretty cool relationship, I think, that we've established and been able to just kind of come in different realms and helping the community. And because you are really focused on leadership and I'm really focused on business practices, which both are so lacking in our industry. I say it all the time, but a lot of childcare owners and directors, we are hearts are for children. We're teachers at heart, but we don't have that business background, which is so lacking. But yet we want to be professionals so badly. So a lot of what we bring is that professionalism and how to be that professional business person.
Yes. And every leader I talk to craves it. They just don't know that it's within their reach because really prior to COVID, it wasn't really necessary. They could function and they could do the things. But what we found is that when they've now, had all these COVID protocols and cleaning and safety and sanitation things dumped on top of their already busy job, they realize they need to focus on time management, which is something that you and I are super passionate about. Getting organized with your time, getting organized with your systems. And so now that I'm so thankful for Facebooks and platforms and, like your podcast, because you're delivering this information so that directors can see and hear there is a better way. And I don't have to continue in this cycle of overwhelming chaos.
Right. And something that we hear all the time too is you don't know what you don't know. Right. So a lot of times, and we hear it all the time with time management, that directors and owners are constantly saying like, oh, I just don't have the time. But in reality, we do. I learned that the hard way. I was an owner director. I said the same thing. And my business coach at the time basically told me, oh, you have the time. You're just not utilizing it correctly. So that's when I sought out my journey on, okay, if I'm not doing it, what am I doing wrong? And boy, through the journey of, I just took so many time management courses and just did all this stuff until I developed my own. And it was, I was like, wow, I really do have time. I just waste so much time that I didn't realize. But you're absolutely right. Owners and directors who work 60, 70 hours a week, it's not necessary. It's just a lack of time management.
Yes, absolutely.
So what are you focusing on right now? I know that you put courses out there for our community. What is your main focus right now?
So right now we are in the launch of Stuck to Strategy Academy, and that is an 8-week group coaching program to where we bring in a small group of directors, and then we walk them through 3 core, I don't know that pillars is the word, but 3 core modules. First, we focus on what is their purpose. So we do this deep dive on a leadership assessment, things like their Enneagram number. I want them to know and understand, to be self-aware, to know their strengths, to know their weaknesses. And we do really a deep dive into their leadership, their purpose, their why. Then we do a team building meeting with team development with their staff, and work on creating what their staff brand is. Your staff has a brand.
Yes.
And, but are you intentional about leaning into your core values and your culture and creating a culture that you love, creating a team that you love? And I know that's one of your big passions too.
Big one. Yes.
So we focus on purpose. Then we focus on processes, which is where we break down time management. How are you spending your time? We talk about time blocking. And I know I have a different word, but I know you call it your fire time. Like if the building is not on fire, do not disturb me. Leave me alone. So that's so important though, because this is what leaders think. They think that they're doing the right thing if they drop everything when someone comes to them.
Exactly. And you know what that really comes down to, and I think the biggest epiphany or aha moment I had for me was I realized one day that I don't respect my own time. I have respect for other people's time. Like, for example, you and I had an appointment today to meet at this time, and I'm going to honor that time. I'm not going to book anybody else at that time. In fact, my mother called me about 20 minutes before I was supposed to hop on with you and asked me if I could run to her house to help her with something. But of course, because I'm going to honor and respect the time I've set aside for you, I told her, I'm sorry, I can't. But on the other hand, had I made an appointment with myself in the past, I would have said, okay, I'll be there. And I would have just dropped what I had planned for me. And even though it's very important, right? I mean, getting our own work done is vitally important. But I would have absolutely said, yes, I have time. And I would have ran over there, done it. And now I still have that work that I have to get done that has deadlines. And I still am putting that pressure on myself. But I'm not showing myself the same kind of respect that I would show you. And I think that was one of the biggest life-changing time management pivots I had when I realized that I had to show myself the same amount of respect as I show others.
And isn't it freedom? Like, don't you feel so free? Because now you've done your work so that when the building is on fire or someone really, truly does need your leadership and your guidance, you can be there for them because you were intentional about your own processes. And so if we can get people to learn that and have a calendaring system, I don't care if you have your paper manual. I don't care if you have a Google Calendar. I kind of use both.
I do both.
Trello boards.
Yes.
So I have it going all over the place because that's just because I have so many things going on, as do you, as do probably everyone listening to this podcast. So you've got to make time, because if you drop so many balls, that creates more stress than the work itself. Right. Because you've now disappointed someone. And then finally, we go into policies and we really break down, like, when is the last time you've looked at your policies? What is important? One of my big passions too is instructional design. And several years ago, I started really looking into adult learning because I train business owners. I train franchise owners for Stretch and Grow. And so we had these paper manuals that I joked that literally if you tied it to your ankle, it would sink you in the ocean, because it was so big and so much information. And really zero people ever would go back to that manual.
They don't read it. Right.
They don't read it. I mean, they would hear me teach it one time and then they never go back to it. So, and this is not how our people are learning. Like, the teachers that we're going to hire for sure within the next 5 years did not learn from teachers in a classroom. They learned from a screen. They didn't learn from textbooks, and so we've got to adjust how we're teaching and how we're onboarding and how we're training our teams. So that's one of my big passions is your learning sticking? Like, you want you want your people to know, think, and do, right? You want them to know and think and do, act in according to how you need them to act and do their job in a way, because you've sold the parents your brand. This is who we are at Zoom Around. This is who we are. Right. You've sold your brand. So that means your teachers deliver about 90% of the value of what you've sold. Yes, you've got a beautiful building and it's clean and it's safe and they're not going to have crunchies on their feet when they walk across your room. But it's what those teachers are delivering, how they act, how they interact with each other.
How they talk. Yes, absolutely.
So their brand voice. So that's a big passion of mine. So Stuck to Strategy Academy, that's the thing that we are working on now. That's kind of our content pillar for this quarter. This is a course we ran it last fall. We're running it again now. And it's just really neat to see directors come together. And I've been running different master classes. I do free master classes and, that kind of, but then for those who feel like it's a good fit and they want kind of a done with you project, it's not a membership, it's not any kind of extended commitment. I just want them to have the tools that if you want real results, I can get you real results.
You have to do the work. Yes, absolutely.
You have to do the work.
You have to do the work. And that's why, and that is actually why I have a membership, because I've found that it's the account. I mean, for me personally, everybody has a different style. Some people can go in and do what they need to do and they'll do it. Other people really need the accountability.
Yes.
And so I usually cater to the people who need that accountability. But if they aren't, then that's a great fit where they don't need that and they really will do it. But going back to the brand, I really want to talk about how one of the things I've discovered through coaching the clients I coach and through my membership company is that most centers don't understand that they have to create an intentional brand, and they don't understand that they have a brand. They absolutely do. And unfortunately, if you're not intentional about it and you allow the brand to create itself, it usually isn't a great one.
Well, yes. Well, I think of it in terms of when you're teaching the kids, right? If you don't make it fun for them, they're going to make it fun for themselves.
Yes.
And how much fun for an adult is what two 4-year-old boys want to do in the springtime right now?
Yeah, exactly.
No fun for the adults if they get no direction and guidance.
Right. And then you have behavior issues, right?
Yes.
And a lot of and it's so funny because with my background in neuropsychology, that is with the childcare centers I own, that is one of my huge focuses is behavior, right? And people always, when I tell them we really don't have too many behavior issues at my center, and I have a 30% IEP IFSP ratio, but it's because of that intentionality. It's that, you've got to put those pieces in place because 90% of a child's behavior is the adult. It is something we're not providing them that we should be doing. So you're absolutely right. When you're intentional about creating, and that is a strong piece of the puzzle, it just makes your center so much higher quality, and it eliminates so many issues.
Well, and when I was able to identify and put, a name and almost a theology around what your staff brand looks like, it really opened my eyes on how I can be intentional. It really started with through Stretch and Grow, we did a rebrand just of our visual brand back about 2018. And through that process, I learned about employer branding. And I thought, we don't have an employer brand. I know who we hire and I knew these things, but I couldn't put names to them. I knew we had core values, but I didn't put names to them, or we had them and they were on a website that we did, about 2007.
That nobody reads. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So identifying what they are, living into them, understanding what our brand voice is, understanding how we interact with adults, how we interact with children, how we interact with each other, how we treat people. And so, those starting with your core values and then building into that. And so I've created several different workshops around creating this culture and creating almost from a business perspective, what is your ICA, your ideal client avatar?
Yes.
What's your ideal teacher avatar?
Right.
What is his or her education? What is their heart? What are their strengths? What are their skills? And then we build on those things. And then we look at behaviors. What are our A team, B team, C team behaviors?
Yes. Right.
What is your rock star teacher? What does she know, think, and do?
Right.
And then how can you turn the talent of the people you hire into performance?
Right. Oh, I totally agree. And then you can actually start recruiting instead of hiring. And yes, it is possible. I know a lot of my listeners are thinking, well, I can't afford to recruit because we pay such low wages, but yes, you absolutely can. I do it. I am in, the field, and we do recruit more than we hire, because when you're clear on that avatar, you know what you're looking for, and you know that the people who are going to fit your brand. And so you start seeing them out in the world, and a lot of times you just know what you're looking, when you know what you're looking for, you'll be able to pull them in. It really is amazing.
And so here's the question: what costs you more, recruiting or rehiring and retraining? If
Yep.
you can keep your retention level low, you're going to keep more money in your pocket. So not only is it a good financial decision to put the right people in the right seats, it's good for your PR, it's
Yes.
good for your parents. Because what's the worst thing about a teacher quitting? I know for me, it's I don't want to have to tell the parents. I don't want to have to tell my customers. I don't want to have
Yes.
to tell the
Yep.
kids. Even if she wasn't like the super greatest teacher, she was maybe at least still that constant.
Yes.
And even though
Yep.
she might have had some weaknesses that were hard for me to manage around, the people might have loved her, but now it's going to really cost me to train her, to, hire and retrain
Yes.
someone else.
Absolutely. And also that's the other thing that I always teach too is that character and values in a person are so much more important than skill. Because like you're saying,
Amen.
you could have that teacher who's, they've got the degrees, they've got all of these other things, but they might be awful with the children. And, but they're great with the parents, and the parents adore them. And parents see the teachers for 15 minutes. So they don't always have a realistic view of who their child is really with. So you're absolutely right. You could have somebody who you absolutely would love for them to quit, but you dread it at the same time. But when you know that brand and you're going for people who have those values and the character that you want and values that are aligned, you can train them, which is why we have transitioned to onboarding, what you were talking about. At my preschool, my onboarding process is 6 months long. And I know that sounds excessive. 30 days of very intense every day for 30 days. They're going to do some kind of training, which is hands-on. It's a little bit of both. But then it lasts for 6 months because it's vital when you find those gems that have that character and values that align with you to really turn them into those golden employees.
Well, and then you ask yourself, what are the results that you're getting from that? Like, what's your retention? I mean, have you seen an increase in retention of your staff? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Because it matters. So my son, who is a junior at Baylor University, he sent me this podcast that one of his finance teachers sent. He's like, Mom, I want you to listen to this and tell me what you think. And this was my takeaway from it. This is all new research based. Like, this is university research based. It said, spend money in a way that might buy you time.
Ooh.
And the question is, does the money you spend change the way that you spend your time? Oh. So when people are looking at investing in recruiting or investing in revamping their training program or in getting some good, solid leadership training and coaching, how does that change your time? Because think about I know your story, most of your listeners do too. Your transformation from a almost broke joke to now you're an industry leader, not just with your schools, but you're leading other leaders. And so that happened because you said something's got to change and you invested in yourself, in your self-development, in your learning. And so for everyone who's listening, watch the people who are soaring, watch the people whose jobs and whose businesses and whose life reflect a life that you say, you know what, that is attainable. If that's attainable for Evelyn, if Beth can do that, I can do that, because you and I aren't that smart, right? We just showed up and did the work.
We're just normal people. We just did what, Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head where we sought the help. And I think the first thing we have to realize, and what I see a lot in our industry, and I'm sure you see it too, when you read through the Facebook pages and go on Instagram and whatnot, it's a lot of blame placing. And there's a lot of, it's just the industry. This is just how it is. This is just, I have a revolving door and parents are always leaving and I can't retain employees, but that's just the industry. I'm like, and it's not, it really isn't. I mean, my childcare center is in a rural area that is actually very low income. And again, I have a 30% special needs ratio. And I still am able to create it because I had to come to the realization that it was me as a leader that was lacking. And I had to seek courses that you teach. I had to seek help. And I realized one day, I literally had a moment where I realized either I'm going to invest in this stuff or I'm going to go bankrupt. And it was basically, I knew that if I'm going to be a business owner, I have to put the money into this. It's like you can't afford not to do it, basically. Where I know owners out there are just like, but I'm so broke, I can't afford. Like, you can't afford not to.
Right. And, and start taking small steps. You don't think of it as, you got to invest in big programs or things like that. Start taking small steps of just self-awareness and just self-evaluation. I mean, there's free things out there on the internet. You do. I
Absolutely.
mean, you spend your days doing free training and
I do.
pouring
Yep.
people and motivating
And so do
people.
you. Yes.
As do
Yep.
I, because I love this community and I care. And
Right.
so because I invested in my learning as well, along the way, I took nuggets. Like I learned about my brand strategist from listening to a podcast. And I heard her talk and I'm like, and she said, you need total clarity around your brand. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I need. I need clarity. And people come to her for clarity. And I'm working with her again because I'm like, hey, I need some little clarity around what does this look like? You know, how can I best serve, you know, the people that I love? And so getting clarity around your own processes, around your own procedures and your policies really does change the trajectory, because when you see that the work needs to be done, you start taking steps to do it.
Yes,
But just
absolutely.
like you said, you can't blame other people.
Nope.
You have to take accountability for what you can control. And there's so much out of our control right now.
Yes.
But there's so much that is within our control.
There is, and you're absolutely right. And it's kind of funny that you mentioned podcasts, because that's kind of how I got my start too. Listening to podcasts, I was implementing different things I heard. I was taking action. I just realized like, wow, I'm not doing that. And I was listening to a lot of, I realized that I lacked business knowledge. So I was reading business books. I was listening to business podcasts. Then I got to a point where I realized, okay, I'm really lacking in this. I need to make an investment. And that's when I hired my business coach. And that was basically when, you know, she just started working with somebody. I started taking courses like what you have. And that was my game changer. You've got to gain the knowledge. If you don't have the knowledge, if you don't have the experience, got to find it. Even if you start with what's free out there, there's tons of free information out there. You provide a lot. I provide a lot. And because we both have such a passion for this field, we're more than, I just want to see people succeed. And so I think we're both in the same boat there, where we just really want to see our industry succeed. So absolutely. But I really highly recommend, though, for my listeners to check out your course, because those, I know just from working with you and seeing the work you put out into the world, that you have so much value that can be a game changer for so many businesses.
Well, I appreciate that. And I love what I get to do. I love when I can bring resources to people just like you and see that true transformation, because there is, there is work to be done, and our jobs are not getting easier.
Right.
And, we've spent the last year just surviving and figuring out different protocols. And now it's time to look ahead and plan and say, we're going to come back in 2021. This virus is not going to be as much of a menace as it was when we started this school year, because we've learned more, we've conquered more, we're not afraid of it anymore.
Right.
We're getting healthier as a global community, thank goodness. And so what are you doing with this time to reset? So your listeners, like what is going to be different? What are you going to leave behind? What are you going to take into the future? And how can you level up to find that joy and that space in your day so that you can get to do the things you love to do?
I totally agree. Absolutely. So you can what I like to say a lot of times is, if your childcare center is controlling you and it's running you instead of you running it, then definitely need to seek some help. So, Beth, what are some final thoughts you have for us today?
Well, speaking to the leaders, and I know it's childcare business professionals who are listening to you, acknowledge what you've been through. Take some time and dump the junk out of your head. Write down the things that you'd like to automate, delegate, and eliminate, and see how you can get better. And then reach out and find the resources, because the resources are out there. And know that you are surrounded by a community of leaders who are strong, who are willing to lock arms with you and help you walk into the future that you know that you were created for. So I know that you and I are both people of faith, and we just really kind of depend on the strengths and the gifts that we have. And then we just open up our heart and share them with the world. So I love what we get to do. And I love this community. And so for everyone who is in this community, you've dedicated your lives to working with children. It's a calling. Find the support that you need so that you can live well into the calling that you're here on this earth for.
Absolutely. And as women of faith, I think you and I both know that God calls us to do. So we're both called to help our community out there. And that is what, we're both fulfilling that calling that God has called us to do, in order to just help enable the children, that ultimately it is for the children, right? We are helping these leaders who are going to help their staff in order to provide a better future and better environments for each one of these children out there.
Yeah. And it's an honor.
It really is. It really is. Biggest honor of my life to be chosen, for God's work in doing this for the world at this point. I'm international now, which is pretty cool. I've got an international client base. So now I can say the world instead of just the nation.
That is awesome. Yay for you.
It's pretty cool. But thank you so much, Beth, for joining me today and for the amazing information that you always have. Check Beth out. I will actually put all of your information in the show notes. Beth has a great Facebook page also where she does give a lot of useful information. So I'll link that and everything else in the show notes for anyone who wants to find out more about Beth. You can find her information there. You find information about the course that she has coming out and just want to connect with her. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.